Hi, my name is Tauki Rahman, and my group member or participant, her name is Manpreet Atwal. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So this is our recorded presentation for assignment two, and the title of the assignment is obviously Leadership Issues in Distance Education. We are going to talk about a particular case regarding the leadership issues that are being faced in distance education. Um, so, and then now I'll pass it to Manpreet.
So, our presentation looks at a leadership issue which can be easily missed because it seems like a normal technology related issue. However, it actually is more so about um, institutions focusing on efficiency rather than looking at the students and how their decisions are impacting the students. This case is about a third-party platform used in placement and career development courses. The institution adopted a platform to make placement documentation easier to manage. This makes sense, especially when institutions are under financial pressure and are trying to work more efficiently. But the problem is that this decision created new barriers for students. Some students had to pay an extra software fee. Some students with disabilities had trouble using the platform and it wasn't accessible for them. Some students are from low-income households and struggled with the extra software fee. So the main issue isn't whether institutions should use technology. The issue is whether leaders think about accessibility, affordability, and belonging before making technology mandatory.
Uh, okay, Manpreet, that was great. Thank you for giving a brief explanation for the first slide. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the second slide, a little bit more about the case itself. It can really be summarized in a sentence. So a platform the platform solved an administrative problem, but it also created student-facing barriers as well. From the institution's perspective, the platform helped organize placement documents, track student progress, and reduce manual paperwork. That is useful for staff for sure, but students experience the platform differently. For them, it became another required step, another cost, and for some students, another accessibility challenge. This matters because placement is not optional in these courses. Um, if the required system creates barriers and students are not just inconvenienced, their ability to participate in the learning experience itself is affected. I'm going to pass it to Manpreet.
Why is this a distance education issue? This is a distance education issue because online learning is not limited to the course content inside the learning management systems. Students also experience the institution through digital forms, advising systems, placement systems, emails, deadlines, and support pathways. In this case, the placement platform became part of the learning environment because students had to use it to complete required placement related tasks. If that platform is hard to navigate, expensive, or inaccessible, then it becomes a barrier to participation. The paper makes the point that the technology can improve access, but only when it's designed and selected with real students in mind. A digital system is not automatically inclusive just because it is online. It has to work for the people who depend on it.
Uh, the social problem behind the case is a little deeper. The social problem behind, sorry, are we still in slide four? Yes, we are. The social problem behind this case is unequal impact. The same platform may seem simple to one student and overwhelming to another. For a student with stable finances, the software fee may feel like a small extra cost. For a student already managing tuition, rent, food, and other school expenses, that fee can create stress. For a student with a disability, an inaccessible platform can make required tasks harder than they need to be. This connects to the broader issue of work integrated learning barriers. Students do not all begin with the same place. When institutions add costs or inaccessible systems, the burden often falls most heavily on students who are already facing barriers.
Where the leadership problems begin to show up. The leadership problems show up in the process behind the decision. The institution likely had a reasonable goal, which is to limit the stat and adhere to budget cuts. Placement paperwork is complicated, and staff needed reliable systems to manage it. But leadership cannot stop at the question of efficiency. Leaders also need to ask who pays, who struggles, and who may be excluded. If cost and accessibility are only considered after students complain when the decision process is already too reactive. This is where the paper connects efficiency to equity. A platform can be efficient for staff while still being unfair for students. Good leadership has to hold both sides of that tension.
Impact on belonging. So belonging is one of the strongest parts of this case. Many institutions say they value diversity, equity, inclusion, and student success, but students judge those values through their actual experience that they went through in their life as a student. If a student is required to use a certain system that they cannot afford or cannot access properly, and it's just very difficult for them. Uh, and they feel the system was it doesn't feel like the system was designed for them. Uh, so what ends up happening is like they lose the trust in the system and the institution. It can also may likely it might also likely mean that they're not gonna ask for help from the people who are working in the institution, or they're not going to be able to rely on the software or the system. The paper connects this to belonging because students need to feel that the institution has considered their reality instead of just thinking about themselves or their own administrative needs all the time.
Transformative leadership lens. The main leadership lens used here is a transformative leadership. Transformative leaderships ask leaders to look at the equity, power, and the experiences of people who are often left out of the decision making. In this case, a transformative leader would not only ask whether the platform saves time, they would ask who benefits from the platform and who is disadvantaged by it. They would also ask whether the institution's practices match its values. This is not about being anti-technology. It's about making sure technology does not reproduce the same barriers that distance education is supposed to reduce. Transformative leadership means noticing barriers early and changing the process before students are harmed.
Uh, Now we're going to talk about why student voice matters. Well, it's an obvious, but we can explain a little further. Student voice matters because students experience the platform firsthand that leaders may not see because they don't experience it firsthand for the most part. A vendor demonstration can make a system look simple. A leadership meeting can make the decision look practical. But a student using the screen reader technology may have a completely different experience because they're the ones using it. A student who's already financially stretched may also view the fee very differently from the leaders or from the institution. This is why consultation cannot be symbolic. Students should test the platform before it becomes required. They need to beta test it. They need to actually have real students test it out before it gets shipped out and gets used in day-to-day basis. Students with disabilities as well should be included in the test because that's real life. That's what real life is reflected on. Because yeah, people are going to use disabilities. People with disabilities are going to use those software. Students who rely on financial aid should also be included for the obvious reasons. Their feedback should affect the final decision because their feedback is the only source that is actually gonna make sense when the software is gonna take be working whenever it gets released. So
Leadership representation also matters because decisions are shaped by who is in the room. If the conversation is mostly about budgeting, reporting, risk management, and efficiency, then students facing barriers can also be missed. Those pressures are real, especially in higher education right now, but they are not the only things that matter. Accessibility staff, student support staff, placement staff, financial aid staff, and students themselves can help leaders see the issues more clearly. Leaders with lived experience of disability, financial hardship, or educational barriers can also bring important insight. The point is not that one person can speak for every student. The point is diverse leadership makes it harder for hidden barriers to stay hidden.
Okay, a more inclusive technology decision process. So this slide, we're going to talk about some of the processes of some of the inclusive technology decisions that have been made. A more inclusive process begins before the institution buys the platform, or it should. So the first thing for the leaders to is to define the real problem. The leaders need to define what the real problem is. They need to identify it, and they need to figure out are they trying to just improve the communication? Are they trying to uh, track the placement documents, or are they trying to support students for to do better? And also, secondly, they need to check student impact as well. So what do we mean by student impact? It means accessibility, usabilities, support that they need, the cost, and so on and so forth. The leaders should also test the platform, not just within themselves, among themselves, but with real students and that are going through different situations, accessible students, accessibility staff, students who going through financial struggles, other types of students, and also they should plan alternatives. There should be a contingency plan as well if there are any problems uh, in that process. This could include fee support, for example, a manual option, accommodation, and finally, leaders should review the system after launch and use the feedback, student feedback, to make it even better.
The recommendations in this case need to work on two levels. First, there are immediate fixes for students who are affected right now. The institution could waive or subsidize the software fee for students with financial need. It could also create a clear help pathway for platforms problems. It can also provide an accessible alternative when the platform blocks participation. These steps matter because students should not have to wait for a long policy review while their placement deadline is approaching. Second level is long-term change. The institution should use equity impact assessments before adopting required student technology. It should also include students and accessibility in the sorry, it should also include students and accessibility staff in platform selection. This would help prevent the same problem from happening again with the next tool.
So we have talked a lot about success, what needs to be done in order to be successful. But how do we actually check success? How success could be checked? So success should not be measured only by whether the platform was launched or not. That's just the first step. It should be measured by students, whether students can participate without any kind of hiccups, any kind of barriers. Leaders can look at how many accessibility issues have been reported or if they've been addressed. Um, they can check how long those issues took to resolve, like the time frame. They can also track how students requested fee support, and all those student complaints about the hidden fees and so on and so forth. Student feedback is important here because belonging cannot be measured only through just launching a product. A student may complete the task and still feel unsupported. And the goal is not just to make the software function. The goal is to make sure students can complete required placement work without being pushed further away from the institution.
The discussion questions are meant to help classmates think through the leadership side of the case. The first question asks, who is responsible when a required platform creates barriers? In reality, the responsibility is shared. Senior leaders, accessibility services, faculty, placement staff, and the vendor all have a role. The second question asks what fairness looks like when a platform is useful to the institution but harmful for some students. That is not always an easy question. The third question asks how leaders can tell the difference between real inclusion and simply using the language of inclusion. The question is important because students notice the difference between the words and the experience.
So the main takeaway from this entire case study is that efficiency should not be treated as success. If some students are pushed further away, the platform may have helped the institution manage placement paperwork, but if students have to pay extra, struggle with accessibility, or feel like they have been excluded, then is it really complete? Is it successful? No. Technology can support a lot of things like distance education, for example, but leadership is the one determining whether the technology becomes inclusive or just convenient. And there's a difference. Transformative leadership means slowing down enough to ask who might be left out. It's not just about checklists. It's about taking that time to get the feedback and responding to it accordingly. It also means being willing to change the plan when certain obstacles come up. In this case, better leadership would connect innovation with accessibility, affordability, and belonging. So that's our last slide. And I just want to thank my group partner Manpreet for helping out with the case as well as everything else in between, the PowerPoint and all that stuff.